Discover Canada Study Questions. For more practice, go to CanadianCitizenshipTestKit.com.
What is the name for laws and programs such as minimum wage, a standard work week, and unemployment insurance? A. Guaranteed prosperity. B. Social safety net. C. Unemployment insurance is now called employment insurance. D. Guaranteed benefits. The correct answer is B. Social safety net.
How did the Constitutional Act change the map of Canada? A. The Constitutional Act created the province of Manitoba. B. The Constitutional Act divided the province of Quebec into Upper Canada and Lower Canada. C. The Constitutional Act first defined the borders of Prince Edward Island. D. The Constitutional Act encouraged the French to move to Lower Canada. The correct answer is B. The Constitutional Act divided the province of Quebec into Upper Canada and Lower Canada. What were some of the problems associated with residential schools? A. Poor funding. Hardship was inflicted on students. Some students were physically abused. B. Poor funding. Poor teaching. Some students were not allowed to leave. C. Poor funding. Poor sports teams. Some students were physically abused. D. Poor funding. Suffering was inflicted on students. Parents missed their children. The correct answer is A. Poor funding. Hardship was inflicted on students. Some students were physically abused. What is meant by the phrase equality of men and women? A. Men and women are the same before the law. B. When a man and a woman disagree, the gender of the parties is an important factor. C. Men and women must take jobs that are typical for their gender. D. In theory, women should be able to do most of the things that men can do most of the time. The correct answer is A. Men and women are the same before the law. What function do the House of Commons and Senate both have, even though they do it separately? A. Settle disputes between people and make new laws. B. Consider and review bills. C. Choose the Prime Minister and Cabinet members. D. Suggest laws and speak with the sovereign. The correct answer is B. Consider and review bills.
Today, who does the term Indian refer to? A. All Aboriginals who are not Inuit or Métis. B. All Aboriginals. C. All Aboriginals who live on reserves. D. All Aboriginals who live in the west of the country. The correct answer is A. All Aboriginals who are not Inuit or Métis. Which war did Canada participate in as a member of the United Nations? A. the First World War. B. The Vietnam War. C. The Second World War. D. The Korean War. The correct answer is D. The Korean War.
Which type of industry played the most important role in Canada's history and development? A. Agricultural industries. B. Manufacturing industries. C. Service industries. D. Natural resource industries. The correct answer is D. Natural resource industries. When did hockey develop? A. In the 1700s. B. In the 1900s. C. In the 1800s. D. In the 1600s. The correct answer is C. In the 1800s. Who can belong to NATO? A. Countries with a historical connection to Britain. B. All countries. C. Democratic countries. D. Socialist countries. The correct answer is C. Democratic countries. Which province is connected to the mainland by the Confederation Bridge? A. Nova Scotia. B. Newfoundland and Labrador. C. Prince Edward Island. D. New Brunswick. The correct answer is C. Prince Edward Island.
The Canadian Charter of Rights and Freedoms begins with the words, "Whereas Canada is founded upon principles that recognize the supremacy of God and the rule of law." What does this phrase underline? A. Everybody in Canada can follow their own religious traditions. B. The sovereign is the head of the church. C. Canadians must belong to a religious organization. D. The importance of religious traditions to Canadian society and the dignity and worth of the human person. The correct answer is D. The importance of religious traditions to Canadian society and the dignity and worth of the human person. What is an advantage of federalism? A. It allows different provinces to interact with the federal government. B. It allows different provinces to work together. C. It allows different provinces to show that they are different from each other. D. It allows different provinces to adopt policies tailored to their own populations. The correct answer is D. It allows different provinces to adopt policies tailored to their own populations. Where does Canada's economy rank in the world? A. Canada has the largest economy in the world. B. Canada has one of the 5 largest economies in the world. C. Canada has one of the 10 largest economies in the world. D. Canada's economy is about the 25th largest in the world. The correct answer is C. Canada has one of the 10 largest economies in the world.
What happens if you are accused of a crime, but you cannot afford a lawyer? A. If you cannot afford a lawyer, you need to represent yourself. B. If you cannot afford a lawyer, most communities have legal aid services available for free or at a low cost. C. If you cannot afford a lawyer, you should borrow money to hire one. D. If you cannot afford a lawyer, you should always admit that you have broken the law. The correct answer is B. If you cannot afford a lawyer, most communities have legal aid services available for free or at a low cost.
What does the presumption of innocence mean? A. It is the government's job to prove that a person is guilty. It is not the accused person's duty to prove that he or she is innocent. B. Innocence cannot be assumed. C. The judge will always believe what the government lawyer says. D. The judge will always believe what the suspect's lawyer says. The correct answer is A. It is the government's job to prove that a person is guilty. It is not the accused's duty to prove that he or she is innocent. After an election, how is the government chosen? A. Ordinarily, the sovereign decides which party should form the government. B. Ordinarily, the Governor-General decides which party should form the government. C. Ordinarily, the political party with the most seats in the House of Commons is invited by the Governor-General to form the government. D. Ordinarily, the members of Parliament who have just been elected decide who should form the government. The correct answer is C. Ordinarily, the political party with the most seats in the House of Commons is invited by the Governor-General to form the government. What are the language requirements to become a Canadian citizen? A. Adequate knowledge of French. B. Adequate knowledge of English and French. C. Adequate knowledge of English. D. Adequate knowledge of English or French. The correct answer is D. Adequate knowledge of English or French.
What does it mean to run in an election? A. You ask voters to vote for you. B. You ask party members to vote for you. C. You ask the leader of the party to choose you. D. You hope that nobody else wants to do that job. The correct answer is A. You ask voters to vote for you.
What are the provinces of Central Canada? A. Ontario and Manitoba. B. Ontario, Quebec, and Manitoba. C. Ontario and Quebec. D. Ontario, Quebec, and Nunavut. The correct answer is C. Ontario and Quebec.
Discover Canada Study Questions. For more practice, go to CanadianCitizenshipTestKit.com.